Yeah, no problem. Excellent.
All journalists and reporters, please bring your recorders to the podium now. We'll be starting in the next 10 seconds.
And all forms of silence, please.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, sign language expert amongst us. You've been doing a great job.
Prime Minister, coming to you in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right. Thank you again. Good afternoon, Papua New Guinea, and good afternoon to the media who are here again. We appreciate your presence as usual as you attend this process to ensure our citizens and our residents in Papua New Guinea get the right message in as far as coronavirus is concerned, and more importantly, our efforts to suppress corona from coming into a country or suppressing it from spreading or suppressing it from taking lives of our citizens and residents. So thank you again for your continual partnership in as far as dissemination of correct information to our citizens and our country. And let me take this time to first and foremost assure all our citizens and residents your government is being responsible. We have to take the message that we are taking simply on the basis that corona is a pandemic that has every possibility, if not contained properly, can cause great damage to our citizens' health as well as our country's economic health. And so, being responsible, we took certain steps in the first place to ensure we are where we are today in our effort to fight corona from coming in, or fighting it from spreading, or fighting it from killing, as I've always been saying in all my press releases thus far. Today is the 14th day of our first phase of our state of emergency in our efforts to ensure we contained coronavirus from affecting our country. As we terminate the first phase of the 14th day of our first state of emergency, I am quite saddened to also indicate to the country there is a possibility of a positive case, our second positive case in our country, and this case has been established by our laboratory test in Port Moresby, PNG Institute of Medical Research, picked up tests from persons of interest in East New Britain, and at the time when the tests were picked up from 3 persons of interest, 2 returned negative testing, and 1 has returned positive testing this afternoon. And let me say our rapid response team has moved quickest in as far as we can. We've communicated also to our local health authority on the ground, the East New Britain Provincial Health Authority, as well as the East New Britain Provincial Administration and the East New Britain Provincial Police command structure on the ground to ensure that we deal with this case clearly to the best of our ability to ensure that it is contained. But let me inform our people not to be alarmed. This case has been under observation, as I said earlier. That person was identified as a person of interest on the 23rd of March 2020, and when that person was admitted to Nonga Hospital on the 29th of March, that person of interest was kept isolated in an isolated ward, and 2 other persons of interest that was brought in around that time has returned negative testing, but one of them has been found to be positive. And since then, after being discharged for the last 2 nights, has been in total lockdown, isolated, because that person has been a person of interest, and the proper protocols of person of interest in as far as isolation was concerned has been deployed in the person of interest, and today the test returned positive, and we moving into our strategy to ensure that containment is undertaken to the best of our ability, and more importantly also that individual patients' care and cure is given so that she comes out of it alive. She's a female, 40 years old female, and she's now under strict isolation. As I speak today, the local team on the ground will move into her village, and her village will be completely isolated, and we will do backtrace of a series of tests. But this has, for me, given indication to our own ability. In the radar of those persons of interest, we've been able to pick early on that she possibly might be a suspect case and was a person of interest, and she returned positive. So it gives some level of comfort to us that our own system that we've established amidst many of our so-called pronounced deficiencies, our actual networking or person of interest, for one, in this one, brought in a positive case for us, and it could indicate to us that we have some sort of system in place that is able to track people. As I said, there's one person amongst many that we've tested, and one person returning positive amongst the hundreds that we've tested thus far should give a confirmation or affirmation to our country that at least we're doing absolute best. And to the people of East New Britain, Kokopo and those there, you don't need to worry. We've identified that person. Local authorities will move in. They've isolated her completely, and we're isolating the entire village to a lockdown, and we will then be able to backtrack as to where she was, who she was with, to ensure we follow her trace to do elimination in the process of identifying those who may be possibly infected also. But the good news as I speak is that 2 who were associated with her at the closest have returned negative also. And we take this one positive test now unveiled in East New Britain to confirm to us Papua New Guineans that we're not running state of emergency because we want to run state of emergency. Prevention is better than cure. And we're doing this because we know statistics in as far as global trend of uncontrolled presence of corona in many countries around the world has led to exponential growth or increase in coronavirus amongst citizens of nations that have remained relaxed or have a complacent attitude. We've gone hardball, and we will be hardball for some time. Tomorrow, as we move into second stage of state of emergency, there will be very strict protocols and compliance issue that is expected of our citizens. For instance, we are opening flights. We were scheduled to open flight from Kokopo into Port Moresby, but East New Britain, because of this one positive case, is now locked down for the next 21 days. The province is locked down. There will be specific operation order issued by the controller to be implemented by the provincial police commander as well as the provincial administrator and provincial health authority CEO on the ground as to the exact orders in relation to the 21-day specific shutdown of East New Britain province. That includes no traveling in and out of East New Britain by sea, by air or by land, and those specifics will be issued by our controller. But for me, it signals to our country that we must still be vigilant. And so the other areas of our country where flights are being restored, there are forms that those who are traveling in will be expected to fill. Just like you fill forms when you're going overseas. Your name consistent with the name on your ticket. Where is your place of residence in your arrival destination? Your contact addresses. If you are a visitor coming in for a short time, what is the purpose of your visit? You must have two-way ticket traveling into Port Moresby or traveling to Lae or traveling elsewhere. Those protocols will be put in place so that we remain knowledge or informed on who is traveling in and around our country for us to ensure we do backtracking if someone has come in contact with the virus in the areas where he or she has traveled in. So those measures will be put in place, it will cause some element of inconvenience to our traveling public and our citizens. But as I said 3 nights ago, the price of a little bit of inconvenience goes a long way to ensure our country is safe from this pandemic that has every potential to wipe out quite a big section of our country if we are not careful. So that has been one development as we are approaching the close of our first stage of our state of emergency. That shouldn't be worrying for us in our country. This is an indication that Papua New Guineans stand vulnerable to corona also. There are many hypes and many assumptions that maybe our pigmentation or maybe our DNA is much stronger than corona. We like talking Papua New Guinean mana meri. You may not stop free from corona because you may some like an iron man or iron mary. Corona ino kamlo yumi number 1, Papa God emet and banisim yumi long corona lo come in big number and amount. But number 2, yumi start long using some defense mechanism long banisim yumi long corona no going come inside. And one of those simple strategies we've been doing in the last 14 days of isolation is to keep our citizens from not moving between towns to towns or province to province, and we had a shutdown period. That period gave us an opportunity to map exactly where corona is if it is ever present in our country. Today, after 14 days, we are only able to establish 1 case. This 1 case, we will do footstep tracking, checking where that person has been to establish whether few others are being infected. Papua New Guineans must know, and those of you who are educated, you pick up a calculator and do your mathematics. 1 person by association can infect 3. That 3 person the next day can infect 3. That 9 person the next day can infect 27. And if you do your maths, within 14 days, the number goes beyond 50,000. So that is the possibility of uncontained people movement in the face of corona that spreads from people who are moving and spreading corona. So we have come to the country by saying there's a real danger out there and we must exercise control of people's movement for the next 2 months. And Parliament's wisdom in extending state of emergency, the country stands direct beneficiary to an extended shutdown the controller will make in East New Britain province. This sort of strategy we will deploy going into the next 2 months, working in partnership with provincial governments who are our contact points in the 21 province, as well as the autonomous region of Bougainville, the government on the ground there. Their control teams on the ground will be the responding body that responds to immediate attention that is needed in those provinces concerned. So you are seeing clearly the response that East New Britain provincial government will put in place in partnership with us at the central coordinating spot here in Wagani. I am now calling on all 21 provinces in our country, as well as the autonomous region of Bougainville, that their coordinating teams must be functional. Our controller will have the balance of this week to tidy on the specifics of all the operation orders, and we're waiting to come out fully in tidying as to what will be the specifics of operation order for the next 2 months, because we want to hear from all provinces, especially to the specifications that is applicable for those provinces concerned. And as we finalize this, some areas will receive stricter attention from us as government, as I indicated earlier. There will be extended period of shutdown or lockdown from the border provinces, Sundown and Western Province, to ensure that we have a full appreciation on what is on the ground. As I speak today, 63 tests collected from Western provinces come in, and we're running tests today as we speak on this sort of strategies we're deploying. We're doing tests in the border provinces to ensure that those who are persons of interest from these provinces are totally tested and run the full length of the 14 days or the 21-day in total safe window period that we need to ascertain whether they are affected by the virus or not. So those regional or provincial strategies will be deployed to ensure that we continue to remain vigilant and keep corona if it is found in different locations, and we will zero in with a strategy to ensure healing of that person as well as non-spreading of corona and elimination of corona from where it is. So me like talk or give him assurance along our country that despite this one plakam and maybe by check him again and make sure that rest of our country are not affected by corona, including rest of East New Britain. There's a need for continual awareness of the possibility of corona's presence amongst us, and a simple strategy our citizens can deploy to assist us fighting corona or keeping corona away from our country. Number one is ensuring that we remain isolated. No need long bung unnecessary long place market or place public or town or bus, no need to you run, stop the house pastor. Life for you is more important than run, nothing, place to place, market to market, public place to public place. Me like ask him, all man na marry lo country. You know, need to run, no can run, you stop the soul. Lo house, na one up, you stop. You run, and this week, we're asking organizations who have people working to ensure they practice safe distance in workplace, and the safe distancing protocols will be finalized, and our controller will get to announce to the country in the course of this week or early next week. We will have a blueprint on how Papua New Guineans will be living in the next 2 months and beyond, because corona, it is estimated that corona will not be around and eliminated for the next 2 months. Most of this year, we might be living with corona prevalence in our region and globally. So Papua New Guinea must adapt to life with corona as we go beyond the 2 months of lockdown that we've anticipated in the state of emergency. As I said earlier already, the travel protocols will be put in place. So Papua New Guineans, you might be inconvenienced a little bit, but as flights reopened, those travel protocols will be put in place. And for us, an area of interest, especially for us in government, will be the border areas. Wainemo, Telefomin, Kiunga, and Daru, we will build at the very earliest isolation facilities, permanent government, military, police, customs, and health presence in those areas, not only for corona event, but life after corona, and those will be receiving our utmost attention. But I look forward to coming back to you in the next day to inform on what has progressed in the case that is tested positive in East New Britain. I give assurance to all our people in East New Britain and country will do everything possible to ensure that that person's last 21 days of life will be backtracked and checked, and ensure that every person contacted, tested, and to map out exactly where the level of influence of a infection is right now. And we hope that like the other two that returned negative, every other contact she made returns negative, and only here we deal with her treat her. The last I'm told is she's possibly a TB patient, asthmatic patient. So that is something that we're working very closely to ensure that she comes back to full health at the very earliest, and we wish her God's blessing and a speedy recovery as we help her in the course also. But let me encourage our country, no can panic. We are doing everything possible, and our first case or the second case found in Eastern Britain is giving us indication that our identification of person of interest is pick that person up, and it confirms that we can pick person of interest. We've been checking on her, keeping her in close check. She turned positive, and we zeroed in on her. So it should be a comfort to all our citizens that the system we put in place is working, and we are on standby to assist further if more citizens fall ill to this coronavirus. But at this juncture, let me invite our controller. He will add on to some that I have spoken, and we can take it on from there. Thank you, Mr. Controller.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. Good afternoon. I think it's also important to also reiterate what the Prime Minister has just mentioned about the at this point in time there is no cause for concern or alarm. Have faith in our systems. We have worked tirelessly with our both domestic and international experts in devising an appropriate response plan should such a case occur. This now allows us to put all those protocols and all those response plans into action, and we are confident that those are the most appropriate and responsible responses that we're able to put into action in a very relatively short period of time, and it will ensure that we contain the spread. Now, what people may ask, what exactly is a response? If I just be brief in describing what the response is basically identifying or confirming the case. Once the test has returned as positive, we then locate and isolate and continue testing until we are absolutely sure that we've as much as possible done enough contact tracing to ensure that we understand and are able to map out what the rate of infection is, and from there put in our mitigation protocols to ensure that it no longer spreads beyond that. So again, just reiterating what the Prime Minister said this afternoon, and let me assure not only the people of Papua New Guinea, but more specifically the people of East New Britain that we have responded appropriately, and in the ensuing days, as soon as we get our rapid response teams tasked appropriately and deployed within that epicenter of that specific case, we will be able to then bring it under control in a relatively short period of time. So, just by way of a brief as to what we're doing in the NOC going forward, now that the 14 days as of midnight tonight comes officially to an end, we continue to bolster the numbers at the border. We have, in complementing the current PNGDF deployments to the border, we've had 4 rapid response teams that have been deployed to both Western Province, Daru, Kiunga, Sundown and East Sepik. We've stepped up the number of testing, and we've done more testing in the last 24 hours than we have previously, only because we've now have the capability to progress in that space, and as such be able to better understand as to what exactly at the borders especially, what the most real threat is, not the perceived threat, but the real threat of COVID-19 at the borders. So let me again reassure our people that we continue to not only step up the number of testing at the borders, but also as of tomorrow afternoon, we will have 40 members of the SSD up deployed to Daru, and 24 up to Vanimo to assist the current manpower that's been deployed under the PNGDF deployments. To date, by way of update on our testing to date, there have been 39 referrals from the rapid response teams. Of these, 20 have been actioned and resulted in 15 tests being taken. In the past 24 hours, there were 70 referrals to the rapid response team, and of this, 56 have been actioned. There are currently 32 rapid response personnel active for the deployment in the field, and as I mentioned earlier, they're predominantly deployed to Western Province, Kiunga, Sundown, and East Sepik. So that is what we've done in the last 24 hours in as far as testing is concerned in those border provinces. As the Prime Minister has alluded to, there is an intent to relax travel restrictions, especially in the provinces, and this will be done immediately tomorrow with the opening of air travel between Moresby and what was five centres, but I will explain why East New Britain and what that means for them now that it's not have a positive case there. But between Moresby, Lae, Moresby, Hagen, Moresby, Medang, and was Moresby, Manus, Rabaul. So with those so those ports will be open for travel tomorrow. We have put in place certain COVID-19 protocols and restrictions, which we're continuously engaging with the service providers, with the National Airports Corporation, with the airline service providers to ensure that they conform to those restrictions and abide by them. I'm happy to announce that, and as far as the ports are concerned, both the domestic airports in those 4 locations, they have, as far as been reported back as having complied fully with those controls and protocols that have been put in place as a result of the COVID-19. All the other provinces will come online as soon as they report back as having complied with those protocols and restrictions. By the end of the week, we envisage a large part of our country having been able to facilitate domestic travel by air. The 21 roadblocks around the country will continue to be put in place, and this is just as a precautionary measure. They're not by any way set up to hinder travelling public, but there are certain protocols that will also be put in place should we require a complete closed lockdown, just like what we'll be seeing or witnessing with East New Britain. So those 21 roadblocks will continue to be manned, again, as a precautionary measure. As the Prime Minister said, we're working with the provincial health authorities, we're working with our PPCs, our provincial administrators, as well as the governors, to ensure that the response is initiated by the province under already set provincial authorities. So it is not for the NOC to determine, the day-to-day operations of a particular province in its efforts to contain the virus, but it is very much the responsibility of the NOC to ensure that we not only get some alignment with the provincial and national plan, but also continue to support their efforts out there in the provinces. The orders that were issued to take us through the 14-day lockdown have and will be, and some will continue to be reviewed over the next 24 hours to ensure that we either continue with that with those the orders and in its current form, or we review and revoke them and reissue new orders, basically applicable to what we're basically transiting into in the next day or two. So our orders emergency orders will be reviewed and have been reviewed. There's a couple that we just need to go through and put through our state legal team to ensure that the appropriate orders to be issued. Just to ensure that they are reflecting of our intent going into this next 2 months of SOE, and whilst I'm on the SOE in the duration of the 2 months, what we envisage is in the first month, that is starting as of tomorrow, is progressing a lot of our protocols, our COVID-19 protocols and controls to ensure that we return to the new normal. Yes. The second month is to allow us to fully basically ease back on the control mechanisms and see whether or not our people and our new normal is not only accepted but is enforced. That easing back in the second month allows us under the umbrella of the SOE to, if we see that there are significant gaps or deficiencies in what we put in place, we're able to lock it down again and review and ensure that that we correct them for post SOE. It'd be very difficult for us to do that post SOE. So with that, again, we're very much ramping up our testing. We continue to reinforce our people on the borders. We have 2 boats, the Navy PNGDF boat Moresby and Taringo, I think. Sorry. So we've got 2 Navy boats. One will be deployed in the next day to both Vanimo as well as down to Daru, and that is to ensure that we have a significant presence at and capability to make sure that we police our maritime borders and not only our land borders. Again, it is very much a dynamic environment that we're working in. What is best practice today worldwide? We're seeing that in it's so fluid and so dynamic that within 2 or 3 days, those what was deemed best practice has been dated and there's been a newer, better way of doing things. So. Again, I just appeal to our people. Bear with us. This is a continuous process. But as far as we are tracking in terms of global standards and what's been done overseas, within the region as well as globally, we are in a good position as it is, and only because we were able to comply with the lockdown, and we're able to continue to observe what was those emergency orders and what we needed to do as individuals and as communities. So again, let me thank our citizens for complying. This is very much a joint effort. This is very much a collaboration with our communities. It is not the responsibility of just the NOC in combating this COVID-19. It comes down to every single individual in our communities to ensure that that we observe the COVID-19 protocols and restrictions, just so we can guarantee to a certain degree us coming out of the end of this in a relatively good state. With that, thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister.
All right, thank you. I think that should be it for the moment, but in case 1 or 2 have a question, maybe 2 or 3 questions.
Confirm is the confirmed case traveling from overseas, or is she a resident here? And is she related to the Papua New Guinean man that was confirmed to have COVID-19 in Laos? He is also believed to be from East New Guinea.
At the moment, there's no indication that they are related, but she is a local resident of Kokopo, if I'm not wrong. So her village, as we speak, people moving into a village now to ensure that the village is isolated. We're doing tests. But there's no indication she's related to the other person who traveled out from East Kokopo to go to work in Laos, and that person is also, his steps are being tracked back by us in case he picked the virus from inside and travel out. We're doing backtrackings to ensure that their footprints are being certain, to ensure there's no one else who have skipped our person of interest radar. So those we've been quite proactive in this one to ensure that those persons that come in contact, and you would see, I think, Controller and myself have the studies here, but we haven't really spoken it. We've over 6,000 persons of interest. As we speak now, the number has come down to, I think, under 700 that is left for us to make contact with, and all these 6,000 plus have written negative or not showing signs of being infected with the virus. They all now coming out of the 14-day period in which they've been under observation.
How is the task force reacting towards the Namas case in relation to how and Ms. Martin, actually the 11th case for Laos itself?
Yeah, he's actually, today he's going out of the 14-day in which he would have picked the virus. So from us inside, we're checking how he traveled in from Coco Point to Port Moresby, Port Moresby out to Singapore. So we're doing our own checks, and in the next day, possibly tomorrow, if not the day after tomorrow, we will be able to announce whether the contacts he's made have shown any signs of being positive or not. We'll have that information and fuller appreciation on his impact. If not tomorrow, then the day after tomorrow.
Can I have the last
The
one?
lady, the one that you just announced, she come back from overseas recently, and when did her test results come out, and where is she being isolated?
I don't think she come back from overseas. She's a local person. If you had me clearly, I said it already. So I asked the media to open your ears and listen clearly. I said already she's a local person. She's not coming from outside. And so she's been there, and she's turned out positive, and she's been a person of interest amongst us. And so she's 10 positive, had 2 associates 10 negative. So we zeroing in on her to ensure that she's given care in the first instance, but those around her are being tested and mapped to see whether the virus has spread or contained. So as we go into the week, we will be able to clearly map out exactly what the level of her impact is. Just like we did for the first case in Harmony, we were able to go in and pick up all those who were associated with him, and we ran tests and they've all come out negative. This one test was done in Port Moresby through the IMR facility we set up here, and that's why we're zeroing. As I speak today, there's a flight of technical personnel being flown to Kokopo to ensure that and the strategies are right for us to have containment. But she's been isolated since she was admitted to the ward, and today, as I speak, she's kept in isolation, and her village is totally shut down.
Prime Minister, if it is a community transmission, where exactly she contracted the virus from? If she's a local woman, that means that she would have got the virus from someone else. Has that person been located or traced also?
As I speak today, we're doing those steps now as I speak, so we're zeroing in on these ones.
Prime Minister, do we have enough tests in the country to test the people in her village?
We're deploying over, I think, 200 or 300 test kits now to our villages, and we have strategy in place for us to ensure that it's not you go and do random testing. Those persons of interest, and they will be picked out and tested. And as I said, the comfort we must gain is that people within our own radar. This one is not someone who's come from outside. They're already within the radar of person of interest that we were mapping out to test. And as part of the process of testing, she was picked up. We will ensure that her associates were also picked up, and she turned positive. That's why we were in more advanced state to contain. If it was a random case out of the blue, then I would be a little bit more concerned. But this one was already within our embrace in as far as our radar, in as far as checking is concerned. So tomorrow's press will be in a better position to expand more on this person to see whether she has contact, how many within our test. We will expand data out of this one case. But as I said, the assurance I want to give our country, and I'm giving our country through this, we will be remaining vigilant. We will not sleep on this. Whether it's one case, we will work on assumption that our country will still be hit with corona. On the other side of the border, corona has come in. Jayapura has few cases of corona. Miraco has few cases of corona. And so that's why we're targeting very hard on a shutdown strategy in the border so that people don't cross over. As I said last week when I was addressing press for the last time, Indonesian President has advised if any Papuans come on the other side, pick them up, lock them. If any Indonesians come on this side, including West Papuans, we'll pick and lock you up. These are not time for us to be relaxed. There's a time for us to go hardball, and that's why we put this control mechanism in place under the controller If someone wants to use this time to ensure they don't follow the rules and regulations that the controller issues out, you pay the highest price or penalty that we will dispense within this context of state emergency coming under controller. But Mila Gim Belisil or Man Mary, we adhere to do absolute best for all of us. Follow instructions carefully for the next 2 months. Practice yourself. Wash him hand. Now can live in an unhygienic environment. Ensuring that you kaikai local food. Today, underneath long corona exercise, we are mobilizing local producers of taro, cacao, kumu, banana, yam. I appeal to our central province people. Buai is banned now. Don't talk about buai. Go into producing your bananas. Extra bananas ready Karamkulo district headquarters. Extra cacao, extra tapioca, extra food that you grow in your garden. Our district buying points will be established to buy and bring to the market in Port Moresby City. So we encourage our citizens to go back to local food. Sometimes within this month, I will announce a program of repatriation. Those who are doing nothing in the city, stop nothing in the city that you hungry and make you want and place look at kaika stuff. We'll coordinate a proper repatriation, and that program will be announced as we go. It has some cost bearing to it, but we will announce it properly. So the vagrants who are doing nothing in all our urban areas, if you start to feel the pinch of being hungry, we will assist in ensuring that repatriation takes place within this 2 months period. So you start to plan to go back home and live where cacao is, banana is got, kumu stop, wara is stop, house is stop. So part of the corona exercise will be for us to reorganize and readjust to live with corona, because corona in the world will be for some time. So we just have to plan to live with corona and readjust in the way we live as Papua New Guineans in the face of this danger to humankind. All right, thank you very much. We'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you again, media, for coming by.
Could you forward your questions to Dominic or myself?
Thank you, sir.
Prime Minister and the controller to announce something tomorrow.
Because of this information, should have just allowed us to keep talking.